start broadcasting from the estate in a limited capacity very, very soon. So thank you guys so much for your continued donations. It means so much. Dennis wanted me to thank you guys for the the outpouring of support. It continues to come in. You guys are the best, and it's moving along really quickly. So good morning, guys. Good morning, Debbie, Chris, Darlene. It's so good to be with you guys as always. It is so cold here in Manhattan. It is like, I feel like I'm in Alaska or something, but it's Alaska without the charm. Everything's concrete and cold and windy, and it's crazy. It's crazy. So good morning, guys. So we're going to wait for the traffic to build just a little bit more and for our friends on the app to join us. But there is a lot to go over, both in terms of Team DML and in terms of the news. So I want to make sure that we have everybody included. Let me double check and make sure that we're all set on the app. I think we're good. Can you guys hear me okay? It's windy. The wind is too noisy. All right. Is this still bad? All right, guys. I'm sorry about the wind. I'm going to try to find some place where it's not so windy. Good morning. Can't hear you. Can't hear me through the wind. All right, guys. I'm sorry. I'm going to have to pop in someplace. But I need to get out of the wind. Let me know if this is better. I'm just going to pop in this little alcove here. Can you guys hear me okay? This is better? Okay, good. So let's start at the top. One of the biggest news stories that I saw out of this weekend was General Flynn, a guy that I met on many occasions at Fox and elsewhere. His position in the White House is a little bit precarious at this point. It turns out that he was speaking on behalf of the administration before Trump even entered the White House, which is actually against the law. So he was speaking with the ambassador to the Russian ambassador to the United States, and was basically saying that the United States under a Trump administration would reduce sanctions on Russia. This is really concerning because it seems that he didn't vet that conversation with President Trump, and so as a result, the White House is justifiably really upset. And so what's happened over the weekend is that Steve Bannon met with Flynn and said, "Hey, this is a problem. My inclination is to keep you on board, but you lied to us about this. You went behind our backs and had this conversation, and you're making us look bad." I was always told in politics, personally, I was told, if as a consultant, if you're the story, you're doing something wrong. If the consultant or the advisor ever becomes the story instead of the principal, and the principal in this case is President Trump, then you've done something wrong. And I think that that's the case with Flynn. If his job is to serve the president, and when he generates a controversy that proves to be a liability to the president, I think that he needs to go. And I like Flynn. I think that he was an invaluable surrogate. But I think this is a step too far. Apparently, Priebus and Kushner have yet to weigh in on this, but that's happening this week. It sounds like Trump's inclination is to hold on to him for the time being, at the urging of Bannon. But it's a liability that we don't need. We need to start checking the boxes. We need to start achieving some of the landmark legislation that President Trump promised. And if his advisors get in the way, we're not going to be able to do it. So, it's not personal, it's politics. And it's about serving the American people. So, I don't think any of us would hold it against Trump if he decided in his wisdom that it was time for Flynn to step aside. I'm going to duck in here so you guys can definitely hear me. I'm worried about the noise on the street and the wind. So that's one thing. And we'll see what happens there. The next thing that I wanted to talk about was a little bit personal to all of us. If you guys have been following DML for quite some time, you know that he used to have a show on Newsmax, right? And there's a guy that runs that network. His name is Chris Ruddy. And Chris Ruddy is... so he's the CEO of Newsmax, and I would say that he's a Democratic operative. Now, why am I saying that? Because Newsmax is traditionally a conservative outlet. Well, Chris Ruddy has donated over $1 million to the Clinton Foundation. He's met with the Clintons on many occasions. He met with John Podesta during the election, after meeting with top GOP operatives and people of the Trump campaign. And we know, because of WikiLeaks, that not only was he supportive of Hillary Clinton, but he went out of his way to relay information that he was able to obtain through his relationships with Republicans and communicate that vital intelligence to the Democrats. Why did he do it? Because he's a Democratic operative in disguise. You know, he likes to act like he's building some super conservative outlet, but you know, you look at the people that are left over there at Newsmax, and many of them, in my opinion, are political moderates or liberals in many ways. Certainly, a lot of the on-air talent that's left. Really, the only thing that network had going for it was Dennis. That was the only show that I watched. It was the only show that I was willing to go on. And since they tried to dictate what Dennis would broadcast on his show, Dennis said, "I'm not going to compromise my integrity. I'm not going to compromise who I am. I'm not going to lie to my audience." And that's what Ruddy wanted him to do. He wanted to water down his show so that it would cater to what I think were some of the Democratic wins and some of the Democratic inclination that exists in Ruddy's news network. And so look, I mean, since Dennis left, I've had no reason to go back over there. I talk to people all the time over the Fox News green room at CNN and stuff. Good people that used to go on his show, and they have no interest now. Everybody knows it's the worst kept secret in New York. Newsmax is a dying news organization. It's not going to be around for much longer. Now, why am I talking about Chris Ruddy and Newsmax? You know, I just finished telling you how irrelevant they are. Well, for some reason, President Trump decided to meet with Chris Ruddy down at Mar-a-Lago this weekend. And that was an amazing honor that he was willing to bestow upon Chris Ruddy, to give him even a moment of his time. Now, Chris Ruddy is apparently a member of Mar-a-Lago, and so I'm sure they run into each other, and so they had drinks. And what is the first thing that Chris Ruddy does? He runs to Twitter as soon as he's done with it. And this guy is such a self-serving egomaniac that he spills all the beans about what they discussed. And then he plugs his appearance on CNN the next morning. And then he trashes Chief of Staff Reince Priebus. So this guy's got no moral compass as far as I'm concerned. He's willing to exploit any and every relationship, and he's willing to stab people in the back moments after having a drink with them. Who does this? Who does this? And why does Donald Trump validate this guy? I don't understand it. It's not like Newsmax is any sort of. It's not like they're the next Fox News. They're not. I don't think Newsmax TV is going to be around in 2 years. You know, they're irrelevant. The future of news are organizations like ours. You know, DML and you know, even the Blaze and the Daily Caller. We're doing important, really good stuff. Drudge. Not Newsmax. It's a relic of the 90s. Right? He's trying to be relevant, and he's not. And worse than being irrelevant is his penchant for, you know, tucking tail and running. You know, the fact that Chris would run to Twitter and betray the confidence of the President of the United States to score some cheap likes on Twitter, to plug his appearance on CNN, a channel that I go on, but frankly has been really unfair to Donald Trump over the last, 2 years. So, President Trump, I beg of you, be more selective with who you. I mean, if there's anybody you should be sitting down with, it's somebody like DML, somebody that's been fiercely loyal. Not somebody like Chris Ruddy. Not somebody that's going to betray your confidence. Not somebody who's just going to run to the press and tell all your tales. And then, so after he trashes Priebus, he then, I guess, got a call from Jared Kushner, Donald Trump's son-in-law, and Jared wasn't too happy about him trashing Priebus, and then he tweeted about that. This guy's just unbelievable, man. It's unbelievable. And the fact that he would relay any information to Podesta, during the height of the campaign shows that there's no that this guy has no moral compass. So anyway, let's move on to something a little bit more relevant because I'm tired of talking about this guy. I wish he'd just go away. The next thing I want to talk about is I loved from that night, it was the same night that Ruddy had drinks with Trump. The Japanese Prime Minister was at Mar-a-Lago and Donald was hosting it. And they had a great meeting as far as I'm concerned. I loved actually what one of Trump's aides tweeted about their time together, which was a picture of the two of them on a golf course. They were high-fiving, and it said, you learn more about somebody playing one round of golf with them than you would in 100 meetings. And it's so true. You learn whether they're honest. You learn whether you're gonna cheat a little bit. Try to get a couple strokes. You learn a lot about a guy in that period of time, and it's a pretty well-known fact that 90% of Fortune 500 CEOs play golf. I used to play golf all the time. I don't get too much anymore. It's hard to get out to the course up here in New York, but it's a great thing to do, and Trump's a big fan of it. And so the Prime Minister and our President played around a golf, and then they had this news about North Korea launching a missile into the sea. A provocation, as far as I'm concerned, of both South Korea and Japan. It brings into question their national security. And so President Trump and the Japanese Prime Minister called an emergency press conference that night, and they had some stern words. And I thought that it was pitch perfect. Trump showed that we're in solidarity with Japan. He showed that we're in solidarity with South Korea. Now I think that we need to show the North Koreans that we're willing to display the strength that's necessary to respond to their threat. Because it's clear that they wish to develop ICBM missiles that'd be able to reach the west coast of the United States. And eventually they could pose an existential threat to at least portions of the continental U.S. And so that's scary. They pose a threat, or an existential threat, to several of our allies in the region, including Australia, South Korea, Japan. And this threat is totally unacceptable. And so I think a display of strength in the region, just as Trump did in response to Iranian aggression, would be really appropriate. I hope that he does that. I think that he is, from sources that I've spoken to. It seems like something's in the works. But I'm also glad that he's not firing from the hip, and it seems like they are coming with a deliberate plan to respond to this threat. So, and to show, we're not going to be pushovers like we have been. We're not going to permit nuclear proliferation of a rogue state in Asia. And then the next thing that I wanted to talk about was Prime Minister Justin Trudeau of Canada will be with Trump. I actually think they may be meeting like right now. And the top topic is NAFTA. Thank God. We've waited decades for this conversation to happen. We compete on a level playing field with Canada. They pay their workers a fair wage, just like we do, whereas Mexico does not. So what's happening is they're going to discuss NAFTA. They're going to talk about where we go from here in terms of free trade between our two countries and how Mexico's involved. I'm really glad that this is happening. We're actually going to have an adult conversation. This is what he said he was going to do. I remember him saying back in October, he said, what I'm going to do in my first month being president is I'm going to sit down with the leaders of Mexico and Canada, and we're going to hash out what the future of this trade agreement is. And here we are, 4 weeks in, and he's doing it. This just, I hear so much the sky is falling from people in the media saying that Trump can't handle the pressure, saying that Trump, it's just totally manufactured. They come up with these unnamed sources in the White House that are apparently saying that, Trump's going to quit after, a few months, that he can't stand. They're people sitting in the New York Times newsroom or, at NBC or wherever, literally fabricating these quotes. It is literal fake news. And you can go do a Google search. For a White House source or something like that. There'd be tens of thousands of articles and just making outrageous claims. Now, my question to you is, if somebody that was in the White House that has been treated like garbage by the mainstream media for 18 months, if they've worked in the Trump campaign and now they're in the White House, why the hell would they go to the mainstream media and start whining about the president? They wouldn't. If they're going to whine to anybody, they're going to whine to people in the conservative media. So it just doesn't pass the sniff test. It's not realistic. And so, it's clear at this point that, he is following through on his promises. The sky isn't falling. He looks presidential. I mean, in terms of foreign policy, this is such a nice breath of fresh air. In terms of renegotiating trade agreements, we're moving quickly. And he's even said that while we've abandoned TPP, we're not against renegotiating trade deals with countries like Asia and the United Kingdom. That makes sense. Countries that we compete on a level playing field with, we're fine to have free trade with you. We want to sell you our goods and you want to sell us yours. That's great. If the Australians want to sell us Vegemite, we'll buy some Vegemite. I don't know who likes that. It's disgusting. But, if they want to buy our Ford sedans or pickup trucks or whatever, or if they want to buy country music's huge in Australia, there's free commerce. And but we're not going to allow countries that don't let us freely import our goods. So when you look at a country like South Korea, where for a long time they were able to bring Hyundai and Kia cars and Samsung and LG refrigerators into the United States, but Maytag wasn't able to sell washers in South Korea, or General Motors wasn't able to sell cars in South Korea. That was unacceptable. And so to see that we're writing the course and that we're going to negotiate trade deals that are smart and we're not just going to capitulate to foreign leaders because that's what we've done forever is really nice. And it's following through on a campaign promise. Anyway, so it's really good to be with you guys. I am freezing and my battery's going to die. So it's really good to be with you. Dennis will be back with you ASAP. I know that he is really busting his behind to get the estate ready. I'm going to be back out there this week too to do the same. And make sure you download the app. It's crucial that you get that. That's becoming our number one source of traffic on the website. It is the place where we're putting a lot of exclusive content that if you want to keep up with what Dennis is doing, you're not going to be able to get it off of just Facebook. You're not going to be able to get it off just the website. You got to get the app. So go into the Google Play Store and search for Dennis Michael Lynch. Go into the iOS App Store and search for Dennis Michael Lynch. And you got to get it. You got to get it. I mean, if you want to keep up to date with the latest news, even somebody like me that's in the green room, that's at Fox, CNN, that's talking to people, that's constantly reading the news, that's on Twitter. Dennis surprises me with news through the app all the time that I miss somehow. So I don't know how he does it. It's one of the best sources of news that I've found anywhere. So make sure you get it on the Google Play Store, on the iOS App Store. And if you love what we're doing, and if you want to support our mission of building out this huge studio where we're going to produce world-class content, make sure you go to DennisMichaelLynch.com/donate. We spend every dollar wisely. We're penny pinchers around here, so we'd really appreciate any help that you can throw our way. Again, that's it's DennisMichaelLynch.com/donate. Dennis will be back with you guys really soon. And he wants to thank you guys for all your continued support, and thank you guys for putting up with me, even with the wind and stuff like that. I know it was distracting here in Windy, New